Oh, howdy all, grab yourself a drink. It is time for some Path of Exile 1 discussion. We need to talk about the new, most expensive divination card that Path of Exile 1 has ever seen. Today, we're going to be talking about Damnation, what it is, why it's exploded in price, why there's a bit of a bubble in its price, and also where it comes from. So let's start with what Damnation does for you. Damnation is a set of 16 cards, so it is a very, very large set, one of the largest of the sets that exists in the game. Turn in a full set of 16, and you'll be rewarded with the original scripture. Now, this is a relic that allows you to attempt a no-hit run of the Sanctum. If you're able to succeed at this, you will get one copy of the original Sin. The original Sin is a unique ring, and as you can see here, there's several of them available on trade for 5 Mirrors of Kalandra, and a lot more that are available for 6, and a lot more that are available just under the 5,000 Divine Orb mark as well. So a number of them are listed in Divine Orbs currently. Here you've got 4,550, 4,600, 4,600, 4,800, 4,800, and so on and so forth. This is a very expensive item, and it has exploded in price during the Mirage League for a couple of reasons. Firstly, the Mirage League is extremely generous in terms of giving away lots of normal regular currency, but at the same time, when there's a lot of currency that's available, you end up seeing inflation. And so the things that you can't get from the Mirage mechanic end up exploding somewhat in price, and that's original Sin. On top of that, popular Magic Find streamer has been running a build, or at least experimenting with a build, that is going to use original Sin, and that does tend to increase the price for two reasons. Firstly, it increases the price because there's people that think, oh, I want to get along and play this build because it looks like it's going to be really, really cool. Secondly, most of the people that follow Magic Find streamers tend to be among the richer players in Path of Exile, and as a result, they're able to then throw some economic weight around, and they can push the prices up pretty high on an item along the lines of original Sin. But on top of this, the item's really rare, people aren't really running the Sanctum that much, but there's another factor as well, and that is that the price for this divination card is completely out of whack with what you get. This divination card is a set of 16. We're just looking at the fact that you're going to get yourself a 4,800 Divine Orb ring if you're successful at completing a no-hit Sanctum. And of course, that means that the original scripture can't realistically be any higher than that, can it? So you're probably thinking to yourself, this divination card, it's capped above at 290 divines, right? It can't possibly get any higher than that. However, that is forgetting about one of the silliest things that exists in the Horticrafting station. And this is the infamous double or nothing divination card craft. Sacrifice up to half a stack of divination cards to receive between 0 and double that amount of the same card. Now, there appears to be no bias on this. There has been really, really extensive testing of this, and so far, everyone's come to the conclusion that when you do this, you average the same amount of cards as output as the amount that you put in. In short, all you're really doing is deleting 1,500 yellow life force each time. But that's what rational people think. And that's what rational people think if they're in a situation where they don't really care whether they gain or lose currency. They consider gaining currency to be equally good as how bad it is to lose currency. But what if you're in a weird situation? What if you're coming to the end of your league? You've completed all the goals that you've got, and the next goals are just completely unassailable to you. Let's say, for instance, you've got a Mage Blood, but you don't think the mirror tier weapon is remotely close to being something that you could afford. Well, in that situation, what you can do is convert all of your liquid wealth into the most expensive divination cards that you can afford, and sometimes that's going to be Damnation, and then you can use this double or nothing craft. Most of the time, you're going to flare out and end up with nothing, but for a minority of people, they're going to end up hitting it big. And then at that point, maybe that will rekindle your interest in playing the league after you've hit a point where there's kind of nothing else that you can do on your current character. So this creates two dynamics that affect the price of an item like Damnation. Firstly, there's those people themselves that are engaged directly in potentially exiting the league and just doing an end of league double or nothing. For them, it's entirely rational to overpay a bit for this divination card because it's not like the currency achieves anything else for them. The second group is the people who are much more market savvy and who are thinking, hey, I know this dynamic exists, I'm going to try to be the one to profit from it. And those people try to predict ahead of time when a divination card like Damnation might explode in price, and then they'll buy up a bunch of them and then resell them later. Essentially trying to get some of the lucky people, some of the people who engage in this harvest double or nothing gambling and actually win, trying to get some of their profits from them and siphon them from them and use them for themselves. So both these groups of people are fairly rational in the sense that they're looking after their own self-interest, and they end up both pushing up the price of Damnation for different reasons. Normally this effect would be House of Mirrors instead, but this league, it's hit Damnation because the organic demand for this card is higher. The other thing though that tends to happen is that this effect tends to overshoot what people are willing to pay, and that's why today, as of the time I'm recording this, Australian Wednesday, we're seeing Damnation falling quite sharply. It exploded to way over a mirror last night, so it was in the 950, 960 Divine Orb range, just for a single card, and now it's back in free fall. It's still in the 700s, but I don't think it's going to stay there. I think it's likely to end up in the mid-5s at some point, but we'll see exactly where it ends up. In any case, I most certainly would not be buying Damnation at the moment, and if I had one drop when I was mapping, I would not be looking to sell it for top dollar. I'd be looking to just get rid of it straight away. And what this means is that there is a unique demand for divination cards that are at the most expensive end. Most of the time this is House of Mirrors. Most of the time this also does a flow-on effect to Unrequited Love. These are the two divination cards, and sometimes the Apothecary, sometimes a couple of others, but those two are very commonly more expensive than what you're able to get from them. However, it is Damnation that is the one that's taking this effect now. Damnation is more expensive than House of Mirrors, and there's a good reason for it to be more expensive. 1/9 of a Mirror of Kalandra is substantially less than 1/16 of an original scripture at the moment, and because of that, Damnation has just exploded in value even further, as those players that us Path of Exile players like to call degenerate gamblers end up massively overpaying for copies of this divination card in order to double or nothing them. What does this mean though when it comes to farming at the moment? Well, there are two maps that this drops from. The first one is Sanctuary. You'll notice that there are several good divination cards here, and that's normal for the Nightmare maps. The Nightmare maps are among the less pleasant of the maps to run. They have difficult bosses, and as a result, they do have better rewards. But they also don't interact with the Astrolabe system, so you'll need to keep that in mind when you're deciding whether or not you want to do this. Now, you have the divination card, the Enlightened, is a very good consolation prize when you don't get Damnation. On top of that though, you also have the divination card Temperance. Now it used to be the case that you could work out the drop rates of divination cards by going to Faustus and paying attention to the amount of gold that he charged you if you were to request that divination card from him. So this linkage between gold costs and the rarity of divination cards appears to have broken at some point. Now, I speculate with hindsight that this was actually done in 327, but 328 is where we got the proof of it. And that was the divination card, the Miracle, was added. This was a card that everyone looked at originally when it came out and said, you know what, this is going to be one of the rarest divination cards in the game. We weren't sure whether it was going to be absolutely and utterly crazy rare, like House of Mirrors level rarity, or whether it was going to be Apothecary level rarity. But no one expected for its drop weight to be more than 3 times that of the Apothecary. However, the Faustus gold cost does indicate that. It has a gold cost of 750 to request this off Faustus, and people who have gone and farmed it, they're saying it may be the same as the Apothecary, but it doesn't seem to be 3 times as common as the Apothecary. That said, it's a pretty farmable card, especially if you scry off this horrible tile set that it's located on. That's the Miracle. This is a card that really did confirm what many of us had come to suspect from the Damnation divination card. Damnation, according to Faustus, has a drop weight of 5. This is for comparison, the Apothecary is 9. For comparison, the Fortunate is 1,800. However, the actual observed drop rate of this, based upon a fairly substantial test where someone compared to a very well documented other divination card drop rate for a divination card that did drop in the same map, was around about 2 or 3. And in fact, we had 3.5 sigma proof, for those of you that are stats nerds, that the Damnation card was rarer than 5. Based on this, Damnation might be tied as equal rarest card in the game, or it might be in the second rarest category of cards. Whatever the case though, even if its drop weight is 1, which would make it the untied rarest divination card in the game, even then, when it's priced as high as it is now, it is the most lucrative card to farm. And there's been a number of flow-on effects of this card going up so high in price as well. Sanctuary maps. i.e. nightmare maps in the new system, they have exploded in price as a result of this change. In fact, while I was editing this video, every single one of my long unsold 8 mod nightmare maps, the ones that had terrible mods on them, every single one of them sold for 56 chaos. I just put them in a sell tab and forgotten about them for a long time, and every single one of them sold while I was editing. The other things that have gone up have been anything that scales up the amount of divination cards that you get in your map substantially, whether this be the Maven chisels that are related to divination cards, or whether it be some of the specific divination scarabs, the ones that work there. So there's been a lot of things that have changed around as a result of farming meta changes here. The things that you should keep in mind if you're interested in farming Damnation. Firstly, it is a very, very low probability drop no matter what you do. Do not count on getting 16 of these. Do not even count on getting one of these unless you're someone that plays the game a lot. However, you will have a chance, and sometimes just having a chance is enough of a reason for people to farm around it. Especially because you've got a lot of good constellation prizes. You've got the Enlightened, you've got Temperance if you're running in Sanctuary, or if you prefer to run over on a less pleasant again map, Crimson Township, then you can get yourself the Damnation card, and you can still get the Enlightened. The other two divination cards are mostly solo self-found only ones here, not anything that you'd have on a loot filter in Trade League, but the Enlightened and Damnation are cards that are definitely worth your while considering there. And of course, if you go with Crimson Township, not only can you use Astrolabes, but you can also scry it to a better map, because there are a lot of maps that are better than Crimson Township, and you can pick your favorite one. If you're not sure, I'd suggest maybe City Square, or potentially you might choose Bog. Both of those are pretty good. And you can then overwrite the native cards of that with a chance to get Damnation and a much larger chance to get the Enlightened. Anyways, that's a little bit on why Damnation has gotten so expensive, why there is also a little bit of a bubble in it, why it's not something that's likely to actually keep going up in price unless people keep being really, really irrational. And that's why we have seen a bit of a correction in it today. But on top of that, it's also some ideas about some of the ways this might shape new farming opportunities for you inside the Mirage League. I'm going to leave it there. May your divination scarabs of the plenty drop interesting divination cards.